On the $1 bill can be found the official seal of the United States of America. On it, a pyramid under construction under the so-called Eye of Providence, the all-seeing eye of God. Above that, the words Annuit Coeptis, he favors our undertakings. This echoes a sentiment expressed by our first president here in his first inaugural address to the country in the 1700s, when he said that we should assume that heaven will only smile upon us for as long as we impart its righteous order here on earth. The same sentiment was expressed again in 1954 when we added under God to the Pledge of Allegiance, when we added in God we trust to the 20. It's been a core principle of ours that we are building towards something good, something that is in the approval of God in a country where we have freedom of religion. So we are allowed to choose our particular paths, but we are to believe in something and build towards something good. Under this paradigm, we invented electricity. We invented the assembly line, the car. We became the richest and most powerful country in recorded human history, the most opportune, rich place on the planet. Should we assume that that had anything to do with the Eye of Providence? Should we assume at this point that we should still be good? Do we even have definitions of a God within us as a people that can sync up enough for it to make sense? These are the kind of questions we're going to look into today.
We took a few weeks off to move out to suburbia, where there's American flags flying everywhere and ice cream trucks almost every evening. We want to welcome you to our new and permanent studio. This episode is about the Eye of Providence. Welcome to the James and Rithika Show. Wow.
That's cool. We now have the in-studio button here. It seemed to us that a good place to start this discussion would be with pride. I've been hearing my whole life that pride is a sin. I've also been hearing from the same people that they're proud to be Americans, so there's some distinction to be made there. I did learn in CCD that pride is a sin. I also am in a country that is celebrating Pride Month in the same kind of institutions that said pride was a sin. So I think there's some kind of distinction we wanted to get into in some discussion. So let's preface it where all this stuff comes from. From a religious perspective, in the Islamic and JudeoChristian faiths, we can explicitly find this discussed. In the book of James and the book of Peter, it says explicitly God opposes the proud, as if being pride puts you on the other side of God, not good. Mm-hmm. Also, in the summary of the book of Proverbs, very famous, the so-called 7 deadly sins, pride is referred to as one of the 7 deadly sins of Christianity. In the Quran, I'm not a Muslim, but I'm going to try to read it respectfully. The prophet, peace be unto him, said, "The haughty, even with pride equal to a mustard seed in his heart, will not enter Jannah, heaven." A man inquired, "What about a person that likes fine dress and fine shoes?" He said, "Allah is beautiful and likes beauty." What a Christian idea that God is beauty. Pride amounts to disclaiming truth out of self-esteem. So they explain what they mean by pride. In Christianity, the New Testament is written in Greek. So you can just see the word pride is hubris in the New Testament. Hubris means excessive self-esteem. This is truth out of self-esteem. They're agreeing in what type of pride they're talking about. Certainly pride for your country isn't hubris. Mm-hmm. Pride for your accomplishments isn't hubris. Hubris is truth out of self-esteem. It's believing you're bigger than you are. It's letting the truth or fabric of reality seem bent so you can seem bigger or more important. Mm-hmm. Before I kick this over to you, sorry, this is more of a monologue so far than a discussion. let's make sure we bring the Jewish faith in, and then you can speak a little about just the secular idea of pride, maybe, and then we can start to flow here. On the way into Sodom and Gomorrah in the Torah, Abraham feels bad for the cities God's about to destroy, which he does, by the way, in the Quran and the Bible and the Torah. All the religions that we tend to discuss, they all have Sodom and Gomorrah, and God puts the smackdown on the cities in all of them. But on the way into Sodom and Gomorrah, Abraham negotiates with God. He says to God, I feel bad for these people. If I find some worth redemption, can you not destroy the cities? Originally, he asked God if he can find 50. Can you not destroy the cities? He negotiates God down 40, 30, all the way to if he can find 5, God won't destroy the cities. It's a level of play that God never really allows anybody. Why in the Torah is Abraham allowed this? Well, he starts by approaching God saying, I am but dust and ashes. Mm-hmm. Those are the first words of his approach to God. And then God approaches him differently because he already has humility. Mm-hmm. And even the religions like Judaism that don't explicitly discuss hubris, they do discuss humility. Mm-hmm. You have to understand you're dust and ashes. You're lost in space. But you can appeal to something higher. And of course that takes humility. Mm-hmm. And how about from a secular perspective? Doesn't it seem similar?
Yeah. Yeah, how can you learn if you don't have the humility to be the one who learns? If you think that you're if you think that you're bigger than the teacher, bigger than the subject, bigger than everything, you won't learn.
Not at all.
You're not going to absorb anything. You're just going to create truth out of self-esteem. You're going to create these things that, like you said, like twisting the fabric of reality to make yourself seem right, rather than actually trying to find the truth.
Yes.
I think that it's interesting. A lot of these have pride as arrogance. Pride is something that doesn't have humility, which is very different than the pride in accomplishments. It's very different than the pride as discussed as, being proud to be an American. If you are an American and you are participating in the society, you go to work every day, you pay your taxes, you try to be a good citizen, you are helping build the society. So you can be proud in that. But if it's something that's been given to you, or it's something that you take no participation in, how can you be proud in that? Because it's not something that you're building towards. If someone gives you a car, let's say, and you say, oh, well, I'm proud that I have this car. What is it that you're proud of? You're proud of someone else's purchasing ability? Yeah. Doesn't make sense.
I agree.
But if you're, part of America, you're part of the society, you're part of the thing that we're building towards, that construction of the pyramid. Yeah, of course you can be proud. And that also takes some humility. It takes understanding I am not bigger than America.
No.
I am part of the thing building towards it. I'm learning how to be a participant in this society.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I think in your car example, that would be assigning the car to you. Mm-hmm. It's all of this assigning things to yourself. It's being proud to be and then assigning things to yourself. And then it brings us to the discussion of the word pride plastered all over and all of these pride flags. What type of pride is this?
Yeah.
And this is a very rich discussion, and we've heard a lot of people having this discussion. It is the same word as one of these, so-called 7 deadly sins in a country where primarily it was Christianity that was leading these doctrine, even though we were accepting all these different gods.
Yeah.
Or allowing people to believe in whatever God they wanted, I should say. And so where does this type of pride fall? And before we even get into that, let me say that there is this other component that I think we can't ignore, which is there does seem to be both good things and bad things inherently related to this type of pride and this movement. The first friend of mine that you had ever met is a gay guy. Mm-hmm. One of my closest relatives in my family to me is a gay guy. Mm-hmm. If they want to find someone and you had met the partner of both of those people and settle down with them, I was never opposed to that sort of thing. And
Yeah.
gay marriage was illegal in New Jersey when I was in high school, and I didn't see anything wrong with it.
Mhm.
And if this is the movement that had something to do with giving people the right to love who they want, I could see why it's a good thing.
Mhm.
But then I also see it related to some really, really bad things. And I'll tell a personal story, which is a few weeks before I moved out of California. I've told you the story. I've told a bunch of people the story. It was, what is that, 2022?
2021.
2021. It was either August or September. I'm living on Market Street in San Jose. I wake up in an apartment by myself. I go and I open the blinds and I look down, and there's some kind of parade or something. And it's a float, and on the float, maybe about 10 feet tall, there's two giant penises, like costumes, and they're dancing together, a giant white penis and a giant black penis. Not literally white, but the color of like a African-American person and a Caucasian person. Like, and veiny and look like real penises, but 10 feet in the street. And primarily children on the street, maybe 100, 200 children that I could see down Market Street, which is like the main street in San Jose. And they had flags and they were cheering around two dancing penises.
Yeah.
When I told people on the East Coast about this at the time, they were horrified.
Yeah.
When I told people on the West Coast, they said, wait, what are you talking about? Like, and there was almost a moment of horror, but then they would say, oh, is it a pride parade? Oh, of course, of course. Because on the West Coast, it's just well known that the pride movement and doing sexual things around children go hand in hand, and that it seemed to me, living there firsthand, that it's just assumed bigotry if you try to somehow point that out or separate those two things or say that there's maybe some ulterior motives to some of these movements. And I think I saw, that's just one example, and it was right before I left, so it's the most recent example I have. But I would see all the time things that made me feel that one element of the pride movement, even though it doesn't seem to be one of the letters, does have to do with mixing sex and children, which in this country, one thing everybody would say, if you have everybody sitting around a campfire, it's we don't want pedophiles in our neighborhood. We should have a registry of pedophiles. We feel bad for pedophiles. In our prisons, the one people we don't feel bad for are pedophiles. And then there does seem to be, along with this movement, and it bothers me a lot, and we talked about it, not in a previous episode, but in that gender discussion that we put out, that sex with children seems to have to do with this. And that's not even the fundamental question of whether this pride is the sin pride or the good pride that we're also trying to get into. But it's to say, I understand that there are gay people that didn't have the right to be who they were. And I was actually on the side of legalizing gay marriage.
Yeah.
I also see that there's creepy stuff with kids, and I also know that the word pride is somehow assigned to both of those things also. So that's just something I want to include in the discussion, that I'm not anti-gay, I'm not anti-gay marriage, I'm not anti-gay adoption, anything like that. I'm pro the rights that they have. Also, I'm very suspicious about the children. And then with those two disclaimers in place on either side of the polls, I feel like we could have a free discussion.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that the opposite of pride in the way that we're discussing it, where it's something that is not accomplished, but it's something that's assigned to you, let's say, is shame. And gay people and people of that community outside of these, outside of the exception of pedophilia, which we'll get to, we're experiencing a lot of shame and exclusion. And therefore, to swing the pendulum the other way, said we are proud of who we are. We don't want to be excluded. We want rights, which I think is completely fine. Like, I think we both agree that's completely fine. I understand using the word pride in order to oppose what they were experiencing previously.
Like an overcorrection.
Yes, like an overcorrection. But as we were stating, I don't think that you can be proud to be something that you didn't. Like, I don't think that I can't be proud to be Indian if I do not participate in the culture of India. I also can't be proud to be an American if I'm not American or I don't like work in America and do things to help the culture in America. I don't think that if something is assigned to you, like race or gender or sexuality, that you can be proud of it in the way that we are saying. I don't think that you can assign arrogance to it. I don't think that you can think that you are better than someone because of it. I mean, you shouldn't think you're better than someone in any regard, but I especially don't think you can if it's something that you did not accomplish. I did not accomplish being Indian. I did not accomplish being a woman. I did not accomplish being straight. I can't be proud of those things.
You shouldn't be.
Or I shouldn't be proud of those things, yes. Yeah. But I understand that as the overcorrection to shame, they wanted to be proud. They wanted to say, listen, this is who I am, and I'm proud of who I am. What they really mean is, this is who I am. Deal with it, sort of. And so I understand assigning the word pride to that movement. Now, what has happened is, because we are trying to accept socially, and I think for the most part we have accepted socially, lesbian, gay, bisexual, pansexual, transsexual people, there has been a sort of silencing of those who oppose any movement by that group. And unfortunately, a group of people who I think they call the minor attracted people have snuck into this community and are lacking opposition because there is not supposed to be any opposition to the pride movement. Which, if it was what it originally was, which was they just wanted to pick a person and have the same rights as married people and be able to get married and everything, they should be able to do that. But now there seems to have been this addition to that movement that is not being allowed to be opposed and is then in the streets being flaunted. If it was just like gay people who wanted to love each other and they're just dancing in the street, then yeah, of course. Like,
yeah, we should get back to the concept of this pride, but I do wonder whether there would be a movement at all if that were true. Because if the movement were to get the rights, and now gay people have the right to be married and adopt and all these different things, and I don't see any opposition to gay people in that way, then what is the movement?
Yeah.
It's just some sort of club. And it does, I mean, living in California, it always seemed deeply tied toward children and sex, and that was always very strange.
Yeah.
Now, as far as just as an aside, the movement, the only thing I see them fighting for politically seems to be giving kids hormones.
Yeah.
And things like this. Things that I don't think align anything with what supporting the gay movement used to mean or anything like that, or the equal rights movement. And, you know, what the effects are starting to be, you should always keep that in mind, like we are when discussing whether the movement is good or whether that type of pride is good.
Yeah.
But I do think that type of pride does get to be related to the same proud to be white, proud to be black, which has been downright un-American since the beginning.
Yeah.
And what does it mean to be proud to be gay? Because aren't we all in this world for pairs, supposed to be finding love, supposed to be supporting each other? If no one's stopping you from loving another guy if you're a guy, maybe it is just an overcorrection, and over time it will just fade in.
Yeah.
It's interesting because as much as this pride does seem to have to do with the hubris, does seem to have to do with the excessive truth out of self, and they proclaim my truth as a common concept in the pride movement, and I do think it's related. Obviously, it's not exactly the pride that is the sin, because the opposite of that pride would be humility, and the opposite of this pride, I guess, is shame.
Is shame, yeah.
So this is maybe an overcorrection of shame, but it does seem to have a lot of the same ear markers.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we have to be really careful with pride.
Yeah.
You know, in general. As a sin, as a concept, you're not going to learn anything, and you're going to feel that things are just on a different scale.
Mm-hmm.
If you're assigning value based on identity, based on, I mean, who cares if who you want to love or what color your skin is? Like, that was kind of the basis of this whole thing we were doing here, is that shouldn't matter. All men are created equal. 7 years ago, our fathers brought forth on this continent a new nation under the idea that all men are created equal. That might not be exactly it. But yeah, one of the most inspirational, beautiful American speeches. Yeah, that's what we're supposed to be doing. We're not supposed to be proud to be anything. We're supposed to accept people for who we are.
Yeah.
We're supposed to be proud of what we can do together, what we can build. We invented electricity. We invented the car. We defended the side of good in the world wars. Like, you know, we fought a war against ourselves, among other things, to stop slavery.
Yeah.
Yeah, pride in oneself seems antithetical, even from a secular perspective, even from that, you know, non-religious perspective. It seems antithetical to being American. It seems un-American to be proud. And, you know, if there is some element of rights that people are fighting for, that people are trying to irk out, maybe that's still happening that we don't understand when it comes to these movements. And that's why over every cash register in every store, there's a pride flag and a pride symbol. Okay, but if not, it might be a golden calf. It might be a golden calf. And, you know, Sodom and Gomorrah is one of these rare instances where God considered something unsavable. And this is in the Islamic and Judeo-Christian faith. And as I think a lot of theologians are starting to point out, it's starting to be discussed more and more eloquently and intelligently. I think the main thing to focus on with Sodom and Gomorrah is the false god. It is the reconfiguration of things through little changes and then through having a false idol. You know, what is the Eye of Providence in our country? Is it the pride flag? And is that a good thing? And what exactly does that mean? Because if the pride flag starts to have to do too much with sex and children or giving hormones to children, and that is our religion, which it really I mean, we live in a town, like you said, covered in American flags, a proud town. We worked hard to move into a town like this, but we go 2 miles out. I don't see any American flags, and I see pride flags everywhere. If that's a religion, you're not going to be able to say no to it.
Yeah.
They will be able to exclaim truth out of self-esteem. You have to have faith if it's a religion. So, you know, we need to be careful with pride in general, and in a not exactly the same way, but related way, this pride. I am not saying in any way that I think we should go writing people off as sinners or people we should throw away because of who they love. I don't think that at all. I never thought that. But I think that if that rainbow flag is the new religion of the country, if that is the Eye of Providence, that's a bad move. And I think in the long run, we're not going to be happy we made that move.
Yeah. Yeah, I think you should not feel shame for who you are. But in the same way, then you should not feel pride for who you are unless you are working towards something, building something, accomplishing something. And pride in what we are describing it as, where the opposite would be humility. I understand that the opposite of the pride flag is shame, but it is interesting that we are still using the same word for both. And so we need to be careful in, like you said, careful in creating a golden calf out of opposition to oppression.
And maybe possibly accepting that we've already created a golden calf out of something that is, you know, still tied in many ways to some good things. You know, we have to be careful. If you say you oppose the pride flag and you say it to somebody who interprets those words as, I want to return to more Christian values, keeping families together, having people grow up in 2-parent homes, you know, all these, not having sex on television, not giving hormones to kids, well, then maybe something good is going across. But if you say, I oppose the pride flag, and what a person hears is, I hate gay people and they're gay, you know, be careful with people's interpretations, because it's been in the interest of corporate America, in the interest of a lot of people who want to manipulate on a grand scale to make the pride flag and being gay and being transgender and having freedom and accepting women's rights and everything, all one sort of idea, and you touch it in someone's head and everything lights up at once. You know, you have to be careful. There's people with good intentions, there's people with bad intentions, and distinguishing which type of pride someone is exhibiting. If they're, in order to build up their own self-esteem, saying something that isn't true, they are on the head, sinning in terms of your religion, and you have a responsibility to your God to, however it is, address it in yourself, address it with that person, whatever. But that's a bald-faced, terrible sin happening, you know. But where there's a gray area, I think we need to treat things with care.
Yeah.
And back to the discussion about the kids, all these different things, that ties into a broader discussion, which is this movement seems to be tied to an incredibly lustful movement overall, where there seems to be, if you say anything about regulating sexuality at all, encouraging people to be monogamous, thinking that there should be less porn use or less sexuality in ads, that if you turn on any award show or music show, you shouldn't see someone's private parts essentially in their butt, that there shouldn't be parades where people's butts are out, that we've been seeing all these pictures and videos and stuff, you know, and you're morally doing something wrong. You're against people's individuality and identity and rights now, seemingly, if you believe in decency whatsoever. We seem to have become an incredibly lustful country. And that's another one that, you know, people can see on the face that the Muslim religion really leaves the least room for lust, and then probably Christianity a second. That doesn't even allow the coveting, you know, in the mind. But then even Judaism, do not covet thy neighbor's wife, thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's wife. In all these religions, you're supposed to pick somebody and not keep trying to do this promiscuity thing, not be looking everywhere, not trying to bring a third person into your marriage, or worse, what we were saying, have sex with children, show your butt to people in the street. That's not good for anybody. And I believe this pairing off was so much better, at least in terms of providing kids with an actual childhood, that it's hard to think that this lustful sexual way of being, if it gets any worse, is not just going to keep causing so much damage.
Yeah, it's very, very prominent now. You know, there's a lot of promotion of things like porn and like OnlyFans and different things where it seems almost cool to engage in that lustful community and just to either put yourself out there or be looking at the things that are out there. And it's unfortunate because even in the Pride movement originally, it was just about pairing off. It was still in line with those Christian, you know, ideas of you find a person, you get married, you have kids, in their case probably adopt or do IVF or whatever needs to happen, surrogacy, and you build a family. And as we get further and further away from those ideas of discretion and decency and working hard to be proud of your accomplishments and those things, as we're moving away from them, and I'm not saying it's only the Pride movement, obviously it's in a lot of straight culture as well. Yeah,
that's just as bad everywhere. I mean, we're an incredibly sexualized culture.
Yeah, it's just the culture in general. It's just that we're using the Pride movement as a segue, sort of. As everyone is moving away from that, we are moving away from what America was built on. We are moving away from the Eye of Providence because we're moving away from the nuclear family. And the nuclear family does not need 2 straight parents. It needs 2 parents. It doesn't need 3 parents. It doesn't need 4 parents. It doesn't need an open marriage of parents. It needs 2 parents.
Yeah. If you have dating on your mind on top of raising a family, that's going to lower your quality of being someone who raises a family.
Parenting, yeah.
And this neighborhood, you know, when we come in and there's kids playing in the street and everybody's laughing and happy and all these barbecues, it does look like all pairs, doesn't it? Across, I mean, we're not going to say people's names, but everybody seems to be in a marriage. Everybody seems to have children or grandchildren visiting. It's, in a country where... And I don't know, maybe we'll put a stat up of this. Erectile dysfunction medication is increasing in usage like you wouldn't believe.
Yeah.
Year after year after year. Maybe we're actually not becoming even sexually happier.
No.
By removing all boundaries and thinking, we'll all get together whenever we get together, and we'll do whatever we want in between, and we won't ever think psychologically about any of it. And anything that is restrictive to sexuality is bigotry.
Yeah.
I mean, that really seems to be what's going on here. And I think the way to combat that, in terms of the Eye of Providence, in terms of the traditional way we've been doing it in America, is encouraging monogamy.
Yeah.
It's especially among men and women. It used to be more among men, you'd have to say this. When your friend tells you, oh, I just cheated on my partner and it's so great, isn't it? The person I cheated on is so attractive. You would say, no, that's terrible.
Yeah.
It's creating a society, or at least encouraging a society, where the culture is responsibility, the culture is family, and people aren't winding up happy in these other communities doing these alternative things either.
Yeah.
Expanding the nuclear family so that you can love whoever you want, I think, was a wonderful idea.
Yeah.
Wrecking it completely makes no sense at all. Life is made for pairs. Yeah. And the I wonder how much of this lust isn't even real, how much people really know at heart that these short-term gains aren't worthwhile, and businesses pushing it know these short-term gains aren't worthwhile, but pornography is just so profitable. And all of these things are just so profitable.
Yeah, it's motivated by profits. It's motivated by trying to get the revenue up each quarter or whatever that is. It's just corporate greed. And I think that we're seeing greed a lot on the individual level as well. When we were trying to move out of our apartment, we saw people had knocked the legs off of chairs in the trash area and had slashed a couch, which is completely different than I think the America that both of us experienced even 10 years ago. If someone was getting rid of a couch or moving out of their place, they would put it out on the curb, and it usually sometimes it would have a sign on it, sometimes it wouldn't, saying like, throwing out for trash, please take if you want it. Or they would just leave it out, and then if you saw it, you would pick it up. I think my mom got like a credenza that way one time. Like, it was in good shape. It's just someone was either moving out or didn't want it anymore or whatever. And that was America, where you just like, you had something, you knew that it was in good shape or maybe could be revamped. And so you just leave it out for other people to get. And you said, listen, if you want it, you take it. But there was no greed. There was no like, it's such a selfish thing to do that if you have a perfectly good chair and you put it in the trash area where anyone could take it if they wanted to, you knocked the leg off it. And it was so strange. It was like both of this, like the same leg was knocked off of both of the chairs that were in that area.
Yeah, you could tell someone was throwing out like thousands of dollars worth of furniture, and they just destroyed it enough that someone else couldn't use it. How un-American. When I think of America, I think of the fact that my parents' neighbor is like elderly, and my dad, just started doing it one day, mows like her lawn and takes her trash out. That's what you think of as America.
Yeah.
You think of like the amazing men who died in war for America. You think of people helping each other. You would rather someone not have your couch?
Yeah.
Why?
Yeah, just why? It's just a very greedy, self-centered way to be. And it is this, I mean, is it self-esteem? Is it just not wanting other people to have nice things, feeling like, oh, I paid for this, so if I want to throw it out, it's going to get thrown out. Someone else shouldn't use it. It's like, why do you feel such hatred towards other people? Not hatred necessarily, but like you despise other people that you don't even know.
Yeah, you're definitely solely in competition. You don't see them as your teammates. You don't see yourself as unified as Americans or even as humans.
Yeah.
When I was younger, people would say that the nationalism here, they thought it wasn't so good. You should have more of a global point of view. You should see people as people. And I think that's not what happened among the average person. They stopped maybe associating with being American, but what they associated with is the team of me now.
Yeah.
Self-identity, self-this, I'm this, that, the other thing. I believe in this, I want this, I want this. The coolest guy, the guy you fall in love with, the guy who has a yacht and 11 women, none of which he connects with, none of which he has anything deep with. It's just self-aggrandizement. It's right back to that idea of self-exaggeration and self-esteem and self. It's like, we allowed people to funnel out their neuroticism through narcissism. As a country, we just gave everybody a way out, just feeling like their own giant, overinflated, ridiculous sinner.
Yeah, and we see it a lot. I mean, that, the example from moving out of the apartment is one thing. But another way that people are acting as if they're better than everyone else in there is driving, which is the most insane thing. And we've talked about it with almost every member of our family. And it is the most insane thing that I think anyone has experienced recently. If you are driving, and listen, New Jersey already was a very aggressive state. Yeah. Okay, we always had aggressive drivers. New York is very aggressive, but the tri-state area, very aggressive. In the last 6 months to a year, it has gotten to the point where we, even while driving, have seen people with stickers on the back of their car that don't say student driver, they don't say learning, it just says, please be patient, which is so upsetting. And you understand why. Every single time that we go out for a drive, we nearly get in a crash. And it is so unbelievable the way that people are aggressive. They are just so obsessed with themselves. They think they're way more important than you. They think that they can cut you off. They think that they can go fast. They have no concept of other people. And it is a sort of greed. It's just a sort of atomization and thinking that no one else on the road exists except for you. Like, you don't speed. Before it was like, oh, I see that someone's trying to merge, so I'm either going to slow down or speed up in order to help them, whatever, you just assess what needs to happen on the road. Now they just stay the same pace and it doesn't matter. Now they cut you off. Now, if you're at a stop sign and there are cars coming, they will just drive into oncoming traffic in order to get in front of you because you are not moving fast enough. It's, a sort of really self-inflation that you know better than everyone else on the road. You know how to drive better. You know how to get to places faster. You know how to do everything better than everyone else on the road. So you're going to act aggressive to the point where we've seen so many cars that say, just please be patient.
Yeah, we also see people who are clearly on drugs.
Yeah.
And drug use, we've shown stats in previous episodes, is going way up. OD's going up. We now have major cities where it looks like hordes of zombies are moving through the city. And it's just a lot of short-term desire.
Yeah.
It's just like what pornography does, same as what drugs do, same as what all of these things different do, what bad food does.
Mm-hmm.
Another thing we're saying, it's no problem you don't need to be healthy, you don't need to be whatever. It's aiming toward nothing and just trying for short-term gains. That was always the opposite of the religious ideas and the idea of this country. And, throughout this episode, I've said religious and the country as if they fit together. And it's not a mistake. We purposely put together God with our red, white, and blue. Yeah. When we wave the American flag, that can't possibly be a golden calf. All our symbology and insignia and our writings and our underlying documents say that we are building under God. I hope we still are.
Yeah.
But you can't possibly be... your symbol can't be a golden calf if you're willing to put it below God and willing to have it adhere to a system of good. And when we aim toward being good, and when we aim toward building, and when we aim toward changing things, we will aim less at short-term gains. Mm-hmm. But if everything is living for the moment, if everything is, I'll sell all of the sexuality I have and all of my privacy and all of my everything for today, what is tomorrow then? And America was always a place that was about tomorrow.
Yeah. Yeah, I like what you said, that people are building towards nothing. They're building towards nothing and being proud of everything.
Yes, building toward nothing and being proud of everything.
And it's just not what America was built on. And it's very clearly not working out. It's very clear that there are cities of people who are on drugs. And there was a city, I think somewhere in Pennsylvania, where they were saying they sweep the streets every day, and by every night there's needles all over.
Yeah, we had seen a video of it. Yeah,
I
forget which one it was, but
yeah. It's just what America was building towards under God's eye does not seem to be building towards the same thing anymore. We don't seem to be going in that direction.
Yes. Luckily, I do feel an undertone lately. And when we talk to people, they do seem surprisingly the same people that were sort of anarchists in the way they thought before are starting to realize that a shift toward order, a shift toward common goals, a shift toward using our technology and our influence toward doing new great things and helping people feel good about themselves rather than just affirming everybody's bad desires is a better way to go, which is the theme that we've been pushing maybe since the beginning of our podcast. Our second episode was about that as much as anything. It's the idea that kindness and compassion cannot by themselves be guiding principles. There needs to be a more complex understanding of what to do. Hedonism is not the answer.
Yeah.
It's not in rights. I mean, we need rights, and that was something we were founded on, but we were founded on rights with responsibilities.
Yes.
We
Yeah.
need to be responsible, and then we can have freedoms.
Yeah.
But right now, we just want to be entitled to freedoms, but no responsibility to keep it all going. And that's not going to last very long. And pride months with nothing to back up our pride, just, oh, people should be happy for who we are because that's how we're born and that's whatever. And that's our guiding principle is we should just be happy with who we are. Well, we're not going to become anybody better than who we are. And other places are going to become better people and we're going to be stuck.
Yeah.
You know, we have to still be looking at what we can be tomorrow. We have to be, you know, a pyramid under construction that's not sure who we're supposed to be, that's trying to follow good, morality, karma, God, whatever you want to call it, but not just our own hedonism and our own pleasure and our own short-term gains. How long could we last like that? We became the richest and most powerful and most inventive country. We invented electricity under saying, we're working with you, Eye of Providence. Now this idea that we're going to, as a whole, spit in the eye of what's good and not do anything to uphold our side of the deal. You know, I don't even believe from an atheist perspective that feels like that's going to work out, let alone from an agnostic perspective or from a religious perspective. Certainly from a religious perspective, I feel like, you know, a country that was upholding God's word and promoting God and giving tax exemption to churches and really trying to find a way to be good in the world, sending missionaries, now turning to such a sinful place, a religious person should be terrified and should really be trying to be active and making sure that truth isn't coming from people's self-esteem. It's coming from actual truth. I mean, believe in God or not, you should believe that the truth of the universe needs to be taken into account. And, but even from a secular perspective, people aren't getting happier. Things aren't getting better. And we need more responsibilities to go with all these rights.
Yeah, I think rights with responsibilities is very, very important. The same pride with accomplishment is important. You know, the kid that just plays video games in his parents' basement and doesn't get a job and doesn't whatever shouldn't be proud of who he is. What is he doing? He's not helping his society. He's not helping those around him. But as soon as you, and I think we discussed this in one of our previous episodes, where self-esteem should come from what you give to those around you, so should pride. Pride should come from what you give your society. It shouldn't just come from what you are, because if what you are is what you're proud in, if what you are is what you're proud of, then there is nothing for you to work towards. But if your accomplishments are what you're proud of, then you're just going to want to keep getting more accomplishments. You're going to want to keep being better and keep doing what's right, because then you will feel pride. And it'll be the pride that you built rather than the pride that was just sort of given to you. And I do think that people are sort of opening their eyes to that more. And it does seem like there is more kindness and compassion, which is nice. Probably more than there was in the past 6 months. I think twice when we were trying to move out, people saw us struggling with luggage and different things, and they asked if we needed help, which has never happened before. I think there is sort of a swinging of the pendulum in the other way that's starting to happen, that hopefully will continue, that this atomization of everybody is sort of coming back to community.
Yes, and we shouldn't want to be run by greed or lust or pride. And even if you don't believe in God, even if you don't believe in karma, even if you don't think it's coming back around, wouldn't you prefer a world like the one we were aiming for, where in general things are better for people, where the world is just, where things are based on merit and based on love and based on working together and based on not always doing it right, but tending toward being the good guys.
Yeah.
You know, you don't from the beginning have it right, but we used to have slavery and now we don't anymore. We used to not allow interracial marriage and now we do. I mean, we didn't allow women the right to vote in many, many ways. We move toward the pyramid we're supposed to be building. We build under the eye of Providence over time. And on that journey where we did abolish slavery, on that journey where we did develop workers' rights and create the idea of a union and all these different things, on that journey, we invented electricity and became the most powerful country. And whether those things can be decoupled, which I do not believe they can, and I don't think most people believe they can in their hearts, you know, even if you really think us being good and aiming toward God had nothing to do with that, wouldn't you rather use all that power and all that accomplishment to do good? Do you really want to have a country that, because of inactivity, because people won't speak up, because it won't be pushed back in a right direction, a country where the average person actually wants to do good, probably because we are the ancestors of those people and the people who decided to come here, who wanted this, you know, having a country where in their hearts that's probably what we want, but we're all being too quiet and a minority of prideful, greedy, whatever people are running everything. I think that's bad. I think we need to keep going in the right direction. It was good that we abolished slavery. It's good that women have the right to vote. It's good that there's interracial marriage. We have a long way to go. And it's not just in focusing on one small minority and talking about their rights all the time. And it's certainly not in golden calves.
Yeah.
Yes. It's toward working together. It's toward encouraging monogamy, responsibility, toward helping each other, help your neighbor, and do not take pride in things that only have to do with you. Build with other people. Take pride in other people.
Yeah.
And, you know, be open to the possibility of family. Be open to the possibility of something that looks like traditionalism, because working together and having children and raising children and not sexualizing them and protecting them, you know, really could lead to a much better world. I think if people think about that, they'll really agree.
Yeah.
All right, let's move to AI Watch, YouTube recommendation, and bye.
For AI Watch this week, on a previous episode, we had talked about how they were doing mind scans and taking that information, and AI was able to read the thoughts of people as they were watching a video and putting in text writing the things that they were thinking. Now, AI has been able to, through fMRI, translate that or translate something similar to that into video. So someone will watch a video and kind of process what's happening, and then the AI from the brain scan will sort of recreate the video from their thoughts. So we're getting closer and closer to AI being able to sort of record dreams.
Yeah, that was the eventual advertisement for that technology. It's not perfect, but you'll show someone a video of a stream and it'll have certain trees, certain things, and it'll reproduce not exactly the same thing, but something so strikingly similar that it's very, very bizarre.
Yeah.
And yeah, so I think people are going to be able to have recordings of their dreams soon, which is a wild thought.
Yeah.
For my YouTube recommendation for the week, I'd like to recommend Veritasium's video about concrete. Concrete is the most commonly used man-made substance on the planet, and it is mostly constructed from seashells. And so the video shows, among other things, that when you look at a giant skyscraper, you're mostly looking at a giant pile of seashells and all of these different things that really make you question what's around you. It's a really, really great video. That's my YouTube recommendation for the week.
And my bye for the week is bye.